down there, Ina?
Yeah, I'm writing her back.
I was typing when you said hi. Sorry about that. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Well, okay.
Trying to shake it off. It'll be okay soon.
Good. Good, good. Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good, good. We're so it's just 1 o'clock. We'll get things started, and there might still be a few people coming on. So I'm mainly gonna kind of keep it where we're at. I am gonna go ahead and just share the screen just for like a minute here and there. Or maybe I won't, because I didn't get in early enough. So I'm going to do it a little different. We've got just a PowerPoint here, and today it's just Lead Gen 101. So we are in our foundations class. At the moment, everybody that's on here knows who I am, but I know that this is going to be streaming. So just a quick little bit about myself. My name is Joan Kilton. I own Kilton Real Estate. I am under the Keller Williams Las Vegas umbrella. I have a small team. My husband is my partner. I've been doing this for 25 years. Todd's been my partner for 5 years. Christina, my daughter, goes to UNLV, and she's also my assistant. And then I do have a transaction coordinator as well. She's remote, but she takes care of things for myself and my team. And I have 2 buyer's agents right now. And so we are slowly growing. I've been teaching in the Market Center. I've been with Keller Williams for about 10 years. I've been teaching in the Market Center for, I think, probably about 5 or 6 of those years. I've been on the leadership committee, and myself and my team are always here to help with any questions. So please feel free to put something in the chat if you have questions. I will definitely answer them as far as that goes. I'm not gonna keep it to, I would prefer to where we can chat. I don't want it to be just me talking. That certainly isn't fun by any means. So please feel free to put questions in the chat, raise your hand. I believe, let me check. I do think that, oh, maybe I don't. You guys can possibly unmute yourselves. We'll have to see. So today's class, we're going to talk about Lead Generation 101, and really and truly what that looks like is you've got to start off with a positive mindset. I'm going to go through what those look like. Most people hear lead generation and they go, oh my gosh, this is just all about getting on the phones and all about talking to strangers. Guys, there's just so much more to this. You've got to have a positive mindset when you're going to start your lead generation. It's really, really important. What you focus on expands. So if your mindset isn't positive, and I'm going to go pick up my phone and I'm calling Daniel, he's a stranger, and in my head I'm going, don't pick up, don't pick up, don't pick up. He's not going to pick up, right? So yes. I mean, we have to start with a positive mindset, and then we've got to move from there into our scripts and our dialogues. So for me, just to kind of give you an idea, whether you're new or you've been doing this a while, I didn't grow up in my real estate career with Keller Williams. So I ran businesses before I did this for 25 years. I knew a database was important, customer service, and all of those things. I immediately got an assistant. I knew how important that was. I was off and running in no time. And that being said, though, I let my clients run my business, so I didn't time block the way I should, right? And I didn't make calls, not because I didn't care about my clients. Again, I let my clients run my schedule, and so I was busy 24/7 without time blocking. So you guys being here, learning these foundation classes, going through at night, taking bold. And if you're not with Keller Williams, you have the opportunity to take all of this training with us, and we certainly encourage that you do. There's no chance that you will fail, whether you started yesterday or 15 years ago, if you're going to put all of this stuff in place. And what it boils down to is your one thing, and that's lead generation. You've got to lead generate. And guess what, guys? What it looks like is different for everybody, but what it has to look like is you've got to master your craft and you have to be consistent. So just as an example, I mentioned that Todd's been with me for 5 years. The way he ended up with me is that I wanted him to be with me more like 18 years ago. He wasn't willing to leave his corporate structure and the insurance and all the benefits. And my pay always went like this. I always did well, but he was concerned. That being said, we made a deal, and the deal was if I made my calls, my business was going to grow, and I had like 9 months to do it so that he would quit by that June, which was actually 6 years now because I was just going to be 50. I had a goal attached to that. I was finally getting what I wanted, which was he was going to come to my business, but I had to prove to him what my business could look like. You guys, I doubled my business because I got on those phones every day as I had that goal. So for some people, it is your big why. It's what's that goal to keep you going. It's not that I wasn't always working. I was always working. I was always busy. Todd, the girls, they'll tell you that. It's not like I was sitting at home not working. But I wasn't doing my one thing on a daily basis and being focused. Hi, Greg, how are you? So that's why your mindset is just so very important. And so when I started making calls was after going to one of our bold, I went to one of our bold classes and I started making calls. And so in the beginning, I was afraid to make my calls because my desk was in the bullpen and I really hadn't mastered my scripts and I didn't want anybody to hear me. So there's some agents in the office. I used to sit next to Bridget and, you know, we would role play and stuff, but still, I was kind of afraid. I didn't want people to hear me. And actually, I don't know if any of you have taken some classes yet with Debbie, that she'll tell you that when she made calls, she didn't want people to hear her, that she would bring quarters with her to the office to go outside and call from the payphone so nobody could hear her. So guys, you're not alone, right? People see me now, obviously not at the moment with COVID, but some of you have seen me out in the bullpen and some of Julie and Eric's team, my husband, Todd. You know what? There's still times that I leave a message and I go, oh my God, like that was horrible. So I know if you press the 3 button, if it's a cell, I might get to re-record it. So I've learned some of those tricks. But it's just really important to focus on your one thing and have that great mindset and the scripts and dialogues. So if your fear is, what am I going to say? How am I going to overcome that objection? Show up to the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday scripts and role play with Melissa, because it's from 9:30 till 10. We usually go maybe 10:05 or 10:10, but you have that opportunity to be able to master that craft. And there's also, you know, the opportunity, find a script partner, find somebody that you get on the phone with every morning at 8:15 or 8:30, whatever that time looks like for you. And it's not, oh, hi, Greg, how you doing? What's going on? How's you and Sarah? What did you do the last couple days? It's, hey, Greg, are you ready? Today, remember I mentioned I really want to do circle prospecting today. Let's get that script done. So it's taking specific steps to be able to do this. Lead generation isn't just, oh, I got to pick up the phones and lead generate. There's a lot of other pieces that go with it. and then finding out that piece. And for everybody, that piece might be a little different. So, you know, you've got to focus on your prospecting and who you're talking to and your presentation as well. So that comes with after your scripts and dialogues, and what does that look like? So who are you going to be calling? Are you prepared for who you're going to be calling? Are you somebody that can switch from, you've been doing circle prospecting all morning and now you're going to be calling your SOI? That's a different script. Do you need some time in between to change your mindset? Some people need extra time, some don't. For me, it just doesn't matter. But I've been doing it long enough now that I can go from one to the other. And then under lead gen, what's the next thing? It's focusing on listings, right? We've got to focus on listings. I love, love, love buyers. It's who I am. I take listings all day long. They have just never been like, they don't get me excited. I know they should. The bottom line is they're what's going to bring you your leverage. They're what's going to bring you extra additional business because of all the opportunities you have with listings. So you've got to learn those presentations as well. That falls under your lead generation. After that, you've got your database, guys. We have KW Command. We're so lucky and to be where we are. Every office doesn't have this opportunity. A little bit later in the presentation, Jerome is going to come on. We've got him stopping over as a special guest. He's going to talk about Facebook ads through Command a little bit for us. We've got a couple PDFs that if you're interested in the information, you can type your email in the chat box and Christina will make sure that she gets you that stuff. But the database is number one, right? So just again, I had one assistant. I worked from morning till night. She worked, and I always knew I needed a database, and I didn't get it done. I would say when we have time, because the other piece to that is I knew I needed more help, but I didn't know how to make that happen because I also didn't understand people's personalities at the time. So I didn't realize I could have people on my team that would help me with those different things because I'm someone that wants to run a team. So it's hard for me to say, oh, well, I want to get on Kathy's team. I love Kathy. She's fabulous. She's one of my friends, but I prefer to run my own team. So I didn't have the time to build the database because I didn't have the help. I didn't have the leverage. We're going to talk about that today as well. Building a farm. So picking up the phone is like a 10-pound brick for you. You really and truly, it makes the hair on your arms stand up. You can start with the neighborhood you live in. I mean, you can make flyers. You can go door knocking. Obviously, with COVID, you have to be very careful right now. Some people might not appreciate that. Regardless of COVID, when I go door knocking, I knock, it's automatic. I back up from the front door anyway. We don't want to invade people's space. So there's still a way for it to be done. And dropping off those flyers, dropping off little gifts to people, those are all ways that you can lead generate. It's just a different way than getting on the phones. And then marketing yourself. So with your listings, one of the best ways and why this is additional leverage is the minute we take a listing and get it on the market, we send out a just listed card. We're then calling them to reach out to those people. When it goes in escrow, we're calling them to reach out to those people. When it gets sold, we're sending out a just sold. So I'm marketing myself, right? I'm getting that information about myself and my team out there. That does cost a couple bucks. Mostly everything else that I'm going to talk about today won't really cost you anything, because what we don't want is we don't want you to not lead generate because you're concerned it's going to cost money. we don't want to put you in that position. So, you know, Chris,
Yes,
were you going to ask me something?
do you want me to? You're doing a good
You
job.
just lit up, so I didn't know if you were
Oh,
talking or if you.
No, yeah, I was working with the computer and I was moving it. I'm sorry.
That's okay, no worries. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Then, excuse me, then you have building a referral business. So there's two different types of referrals, right? There's referrals from your sphere of influence, your past clients, your friends, your family, that's all your sphere of influence. But what about other agents? So that's another way to lead generate. It might be real easy for you to pick up the phone and introduce yourself to another Keller Williams agent that's in California or Chicago or New York or wherever that looks like. You don't have to wait to get a client that wants to buy in those areas. You can just say, okay, I want to call one big city in each state, and then I'm going to go down to cities that are farther out and have maybe less people and they're not the capital or whatever. Those agents then, who are they going to think of? You're going to stay in touch with them. So sometimes I think we make the mistake and we think, well, you know, I just got that referral in California. That's great. But why not reach out to them first? Why do we have to wait for somebody on Facebook or something to say, hey, who knows, needs an agent in Las Vegas, Nevada? If we're already reaching out to them, guess what? They're just going to call you. And I think that's really, you know, a good thing. And then directories, yes.
Just one thing that helped me, because the like you said, using the phone was like a 10-pound brick, and
Yeah.
I'm more of a face-to-face person. But I moved out here from Michigan, and I'm like, I don't know anybody out here, so the title companies who help you get the farms, we got a farm from people that lived in Michigan but owned properties here. So then I already had a nice segue to say, hey, I used to live in Michigan and I live in Vegas. And that kind of helped me break the ice using the phone.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, because yeah, the title company will give you numbers and we'll go over that, but that's awesome. So now are you calling other people? Have you kind of broke the ice for yourself as far as calling other people? Are you less afraid of doing that now?
Yeah, I even call expires now, which I like scared to death to do. But yeah, that just helped. The goal is to let people know that you're an agent. And even in the sphere, like I was scared to talk to my friends about being a realtor because they're like, oh, here comes Greg gonna try to sell me something. But what had happened was people then started to associate me with real estate. And then when they start talking to people, like, hey, call Greg. So we had three deals from our sphere of influence that probably wouldn't have happened had we been reluctant like we were originally feeling.
Well, and that's great. And that's true. So Dawn on my team, she has made her family aware. And so last week she called me and said, okay, she had some questions and stuff. So one of her cousins in Long Beach has somebody, they already sold their house out there, but they're looking to buy here. So had she not have reached out, and she's got a large family, you know, to everybody and let them know, they may not have thought of her, you know. And that's the thing. I think sometimes we find the hard way that and I was kind of one of the, like, I didn't want to call my sphere. I didn't want to call my family. I felt like, well, they know what I do, and I didn't want to be bothersome. And like you said, you know, the salesperson or whatever, an agent that used to be in our office went to lunch every day with his dad and his brother. He never asked for business. One day he went to lunch and they had given business to somebody else. Could you imagine that? So you have to look at it and say, well, that's my bad, because we always are busy, right? When you're talking to people, what are you doing? Oh, I'm busy. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. So if we're not letting them know that no matter how busy we are, we always have time for them, and their referrals, and that we want to make sure that they know that we want to earn those referrals. What can we do to earn them? What do you need? How can we help you? If we don't make sure that they're aware of that, we can't blame them for giving that referral to Joe Smith, right? So the fact that you did that and you've gotten 3 pieces of business out of it, and by making the phone calls the reverse way, it broke the ice for you. I mean, that's amazing. So I think that's a great story that you can share with other agents as more and more people are coming into the office, and maybe you teach classes, because you know, you guys are so new in the business, and I can tell you, I wish that I would have had that opportunity. So that's why when I say, you know, being at Keller Williams and having all these opportunities, you can just fly and soar your career in no time. And it's, you know, it's simple. It's not easy. It takes some work, but you know, I mean, I didn't get into the business thinking that it was just business was just going to come to me. And a lot of people do. They just think the phone is going to ring, right? And yes, there are some people that the second they find out you're in the business, they're going to call you. But is it going to be enough for you to pay your mortgage and feed your children and pay all of your bills? Probably not, right? So the direct response marketing, we'll talk about that a little bit. For us, what we do is when we send out our just listed, we use a couple core fact, and on the postcard, it's got a specific phone number and information on it that the minute those clients click on it, I get notified. So if I don't have their phone number, I try to get it. And worst case, you know, they have emailed me. So direct response marketing does work, like call capture. On our signs, we put a rider, and it's got an 800 number, and the house has its own website. And the second that somebody texts, I get a text, I get an email, and I call you back. Hey, Daniel, this is Joan Kilton with Keller Williams. You just requested some information on my listing at 2800 Crown Ridge. How are you doing this afternoon? And they're like, oh, wow, that was quick, right? You know, I just had one, literally, I just talked to him a few minutes ago, but he's thinking that he needs to do a rental, and he definitely wants to be in Sun City. I talked to him, and the reason is he's got a property to sell in California. So I'm talking to him about, you know what, we can look at some other options, and there's a great possibility I'll be able to get you into a purchase versus a rental. So those phone calls are why you need to have listings. That's how you get your leverage with extra people you don't know. Yes, Daniel.
What was the name of that thing you were saying underneath your sign? There's a phone number and they text that number. What's it called?
So that's called Listing Power Tools. And to my knowledge, unless the price has changed, it's right around $39 per listing. And besides so what happens is after we take our pictures, Todd and I look at the pictures, and we take 3 of them and send it to Listing Power Tools, and they put it on that rider that we hang. But we also get 8x10 little business cards. We get a ton of different types of postcards. We actually get door hangers that you can hang, little business cards, and you can give them to your clients to hand out when they're at work or they're meeting with family. So it's a lot of marketing materials for $39 per listing. And we have we've been using it now at least 2 years, if not 3, and we have definitely gotten business out of it. You know, some of them, they go in our database and they're nurtured, but this gentleman, I guarantee you I'll be working with him regardless of if he rents or not, because where he works will also, I already know, bring me a lot of business. So it's a pretty great opportunity. And you know, $39 isn't a lot of money, but again, when you're starting out, depending on your budget, that might be something that people can write down and add on, later. And then, of course, we have the internet, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff. And as I mentioned, we with Command, we're setting all of ours up right now. So we haven't actually used Facebook through Command yet. But what I understand is Gary Keller was able to set it up that the leads are like insanely cheap, like at 46 cents a lead. So it is something that I think can be very affordable. And then, like I said, that's something we can have Jerome talk about a little bit. And then adding leverage when it's appropriate. So what I mean by that is realizing that you need more people on your team. That's what the leverage piece is, whether that's hiring somebody and paying them per closing. There's plenty of different ways that you can add to your team. But guys, those are 11 things that come in and fall under lead generation. And it's not just, oh, Joni's going to talk about getting on the phones. There's so much more to that. So does anybody have any questions right now? Okay, well, I'm going to kind of keep going. Certainly raise your hands. This has been working okay. I'm certainly okay with that. So what is your goal of your lead generation? Your goal of your lead generation is to get an appointment. Maybe you don't get the appointment, but I'm talking to Matt on the phone and he's just really insistent that he's not doing anything. There's no appointment for me to get. But then my next question is, well, hey, Maddie, do you by any chance have any friends or family that you've talked to recently that might be making any type of a move? And if his answer is yes, that was what I wanted to go for number 2. I couldn't get an appointment, but I got a referral from him. So it's getting business, and then it's building relationships. So if Maddie said, you know what, Joan, I really don't know anybody right now. But he took that second. Then it's okay, well, guess what? He was kind enough to think about that. So I'm going to basically at that point say, you know what, Maddie, thank you so much for thinking about that for me. You took a moment to really think about it. Would it be possible that I could stay in touch with you in case you do come across somebody? And I know you said there's no chance you're moving anytime in the near future. We all know sometimes things happen. So would it be possible, Maddie, I've got your phone number. Obviously, we're on the phone. Can I get the best email for you? And is it okay if I stay in touch with you? Can I give you a call on a quarterly basis? And you know what? Hopefully the information I'm sending you and our contacts that we're making, when you will come across somebody, you'll say, you know what, she actually did earn that referral. So it's not just expecting him to spit out a referral at me when maybe it was the first time I've talked to him. I can tell you I've had people do that. I've been lucky enough for that, but most of the time you've got to earn it, and that's okay. What's really important there, and this is what Kathy's going to talk about on Friday, is guys, you're going to make these calls. You're going to go door knocking, whatever it is that you're going to do, wherever the leads come from. Don't do all of that hard work and then not show up to Kathy's class on Friday and make sure you're doing follow-up. Because Gary will say, spend all your time doing your lead generation all day long, get all of this information, but you might as well throw it in the trash if you're not going to do your follow-up. And you know what? Just like anything else, we all fall off and say, oh, today I didn't get to my follow-up. Well, get to it tomorrow. Because when you make that call, and I have, and it's, hi, Ina, I was giving you a call back. I know I told you I was going to call you 2 days ago, and I'm so sorry. My schedule got out of control, and, you know, I so apologize. I was just giving you a call back to see about getting that appointment set. And Ina says to me, you know what, Joni? You were supposed to call me at 4 o'clock on Tuesday, and it's Thursday. And Mary Smith called me at 5 o'clock. I already sat down with her, and we've already made a deal. Doesn't feel good. And we're human. It's going to happen. Nobody's perfect. Please don't think that anybody's perfect. I don't care how good your follow-up system is, as good as Command is. It's getting it in there, but nobody is perfect. I mean, there are plenty of times that I talk to other team leaders and they're going in and they're checking on, you know, how the leads are going. Are their agents getting back to them? And they're sitting down and chatting with them. And the truth is, you know what, we make mistakes and things fall through the crack, but do the best you can, obviously, to not let that happen. And if it's not, if it's happening a lot, it's probably because the system you're working with isn't the best system for you, right? Maybe you don't like getting on the computer every day and getting into command and looking who you're supposed to talk to. Maybe it's using an index card box because you carry it with you and you can make calls while you're driving on your hands-free vehicle and you're good to go. I don't know what that looks like, but what I know is be honest with yourself and be honest with your team leader, because if that system isn't working, I would rather sit with you and put together a system that does. Because if you're a good, honest person and you really enjoy being on my team and working with me, I'm going to prefer to work with you. But I do need to know if you're tripping over something, what is it? I can't help you if I don't know. Right? So I think that's really important. So building the relationship for future business. So asking Maddie, you know, down the line, okay, right? That's important. So I'm increasing my METs. So what does it mean to increase your METs? Who wants to tell me?
Those are the people you've met, right?
Right. So since I met you on the phone during our call and you gave me your email, I have your information now. So who Todd and I know are only this many people. But if we took everybody on here, it's this many people. So that's why it's important to reach out to strangers, however you decide to do that. Because whoever your sphere is, your past clients, whoever you talk to that you know every day about real estate and ask for business, there are people out there that none of those people know. And the only way you're going to reach them is getting on the phone, door knocking, internet leads, possibly through Facebook, doing open houses eventually again, making those calls, as Greg said, to strangers. The only way you're going to meet these strangers, guys, is if you put it in your calendar, if you time block it, and you do it. And again, you have to do it whatever way works best for you. Because guess what? Everybody you meet, you should look at them and say, okay, what category are they going to fall into? Are they going to turn into a buyer or a seller right away? Are they going to be a piece of future business? Or are they going to be somebody that will refer me business? So I have friends that they have a realtor. They bought the home that they're in now, and they knew me at the time, but they had a realtor that helped them buy their previous house and helped them buy this house. But guess what? I've earned their referrals. So they are loyal to their realtor that they knew prior to me, and we became friends from where we lived. And yet they have called me and referred me their friends and business. So, you know, there is a way sometimes when people already have loyalty to a realtor, because I knew they had that relationship, I didn't ask them for the business. I'm going to tell you I did. I didn't, because I knew that they had the relationships. So when they phoned me and said, hey, Joni, we've got a referral for you, I was grateful. And I also said, okay, there's another example of, even though somebody has some loyalty, you might be able to earn their business somehow. You just don't know. You can't cross people, you know, off of that list. So I know they're probably not going to ever be my client, but they are a referral source for me, and I'm grateful for that. So your mindset when you're out, wherever you are, is who are you going to meet today? because there you go again with adding to your database. Some of you know Mary Kay in our office. Mary Kay wears her Keller Williams badge everywhere she goes. Mary Kay talks to people and meets people, and so does Kathy, I know. But I've had conversations with Mary Kay that she's gotten business from people talking to her in line at the grocery store. Again, is some of that going to change a little bit, at least for a minute? Yeah, it probably will. I'm lucky I know where my badge is, guys. I mean, I find it in that purse or that purse. I mean, it'll go through the wash. Who knows? But that's Mira's thing. She remembers to do that all the time. So what is she doing? She's marketing herself. All of these little things that we don't think might turn into being a big deal, it is. So lead generation is the fuel for our business, but it's our effort that keeps it going. So if we're not lead generating, we're not going to have the business. And so that being said, our fuel needs to be focused on our one thing. So what is the one thing? What is that going to be for you? Is it going to be getting on the phones? What does that look like? It's different for everybody. So how many hours of lead generating should we all be doing a day?
3.
Yep, 3. Okay, and so out 3, what are you doing 2 of the hours and what are you doing 1 of the other hours? How does that get broke down is what I should say.
It's a hardcore guess, but I would think 2 hours being new business and 1 hour nurturing your PCSOI and people you know.
Your follow-up. That's exactly right, Daniel. So those are the people, the follow-ups, who are you supposed to be talking to? So you get into your database in the morning and you go, okay, I've got 5 follow-up calls to make later. I'm going to get my 2 hours of my stranger, my new Mets. I'm going to make all of those calls. And then I've got an hour. So I've got 5 that are in here. Oh, well, did I write somebody down when I was driving yesterday that I was supposed to call back that, didn't get in the database? And so for me, I've learned I carry some kind of a little book with me and I date it at the top. And because years ago, it was looking for whatever I could reach. So now I have that book with me all the time. It's got a date on it. And I get as much information right then and there as I can. And then we have a sheet that Todd made that just asks all their information. So their name, address, phone number, email. So we categorize our people. Are they hot? If they're hot, that means that they're going to buy in the next 30 days. If they're a nurture, so on and so on. So then I circle where I think they're going to go. And it's got on here whether I sent my app. So the app on my phone, yes or no. And then the notes. I give that to Todd and then he puts it in our database. And in my notes, I write on there, when is the next time that I'm supposed to be calling them? So sometimes they just start out in my little notebook, but we have a system to how they get them to the database. And sometimes I still fail and they still go, oh my God, like, where did you get this stuff from? Well, it was in the back seat. So, it still happens even though we have a system, right? But the 3 hours, guys, if you know your schedule, it should be 9 to 11. And then you're 11 to 12, but maybe you work out in the morning and you can't start until 10 or whatever that looks like. Gary says, you have your most energy in the morning and that's when you are going to reach the most people and when you should do it. And I'm sure he's 100% correct. But I also know that some people have other priorities, and with things that are going on in our life these days, we may have to adjust that a little bit. They talked about that even in Bold Pivot. If you can get an hour and a half done in the morning and an hour and a half done in the afternoon, it's getting it done, right? And it's got to be consistent. So Sometimes on the day of our owners meetings, we've got all of our committee meetings. So I know I'm not going to make calls that day, and my team knows not to make an appointment for me that day. So that means I've got to make those extra calls another day. So I can make them on Monday or Tuesday, or I can make them on Wednesday or on Thursday or Friday. I mean, you know, so it is, if you're going to erase them, you've got to replace them, because the bottom line is, if you look at today and said, okay, if I were to go back and look at my lead generation for June, what does that look like? And if it's filled and you did all of it, July, August, September, that should look really good. If you look at June and you didn't do a lot of it, and you took too much time off, you were going to the beach, you were going to the lake, whatever you were doing, that it's going to start showing up in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And if that was a choice you made, because it was your vacation, it was your time to take a break, you need whatever that looks like, it's okay as long as you financially planned for it. But sometimes we get caught and then we go, oh my gosh, what happened? Why don't we have any closings? Well, let's go back to your book for 90 days. Oh yeah, I took a couple weeks off. Maybe it wasn't your fault. Maybe you got sick, whatever it looks like. But that's why if you get into these habits and it's not, you find what you enjoy doing. Like for me, I know that I have a job. I have a career. It's successful. Most of the time, and I mean, I don't wake up and go, oh my God, like, I don't want to do this. Sometimes am I tired? Of course, but I'm excited to have an opportunity to help somebody each and every day, because that's what I feel like our business is. We are helping people. And, you know, so when it comes to picking up your phone and making your calls, if you look at it and say, who am I going to help today? Who can I help and bring some value to? That's a lot different than saying in your head, oh, I got to lead generate for 3 hours. I mean, everything just changes. Does that make sense? So let's talk about leads. Are all leads the same? What do
I
you
would
think?
say no.
You say no, right? Okay. Does it mean that all leads are good or all leads are bad?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so that's just it. When it comes to lead generation, you know, people are like, well, you know, I got a bunch of crappy leads. Well, you know what? Are they leads that are going to take a little bit longer to nurture? Yeah, maybe. Are you willing to take that time to do that? Some people are, some people aren't. Put them in your database, stay on top of them. If you're not somebody that's going to do that, give them to somebody else that will, because somebody is going to work it a little bit different than you are. And people look at lead generation as it's hard, it's not easy. You know what? Everything in life isn't easy. You've got to work at some things, and this just is one of them. And then how about, well, I'm too busy. That's where we get in a trap, right? And I still do it plenty of times. I have an assistant and a transaction coordinator, and I still want to handle some things in the file that there's zero reason for me to touch any of it. Christina is shaking her head. Because if you had everything prepared the night before for who you were calling, and you don't have to look at your emails, the house isn't going to burn down before noon, and you have somebody that can watch that. Or guess what? From 8 to 8:30, you check your emails. You make sure that there isn't something that you could actually lose a deal over. And then from 8 to 8:30 to 9, you practice, and from 9 to noon, you get on the phones. And just by doing that and having it in your schedule, and that's what it is. It's not that you're busy. What's the bold law that goes with it? Your schedule.
If it's not in there, it doesn't exist.
That's right. If it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. So where do you have your schedule? Are you somebody that you need to carry a paper schedule with you? Or are you somebody that, you get in your Gmail, it's on your Google, you print it out and you have it in front of you? It doesn't matter. It's keeping a schedule. And one thing that's interesting that I wrote down when I was doing my research for some things I wanted to add to this class was that if you're doing your lead generation every day, you know what you're doing tomorrow. Well, I'm lead generating tomorrow. I'm lead generating the next day. This is what I do. It's part of my everyday job. It's my one thing. It's what I'm focusing on. Does that mean that you don't have appointments and things like that? But guess what? If you're committed and you're doing your lead generation from 9 to noon every day and your lead follow-up, you can take the afternoon off. You did what you were supposed to do. So what I can also tell you is when I'm consistent and I make the calls and put in the lead generating time that I'm supposed to, I feel so much better than the days that I don't, because I know that my 20% is my lead generation. And I know I just did my job. And it makes me feel good. Do I take the afternoon off? Yeah, not really, not very often. But once in a while, it's like, man, that felt great. And I got an appointment and I did this and I did that. And you know what? Maybe I'm not going to kill myself the rest of the day. But it's okay because you did your one thing. So again, it's coming back to lead generation. And then I don't know what to say. So scripts, that's one of the other things, is really learning your scripts, learning your dialogues, and really getting masterful at that. And then again, no money, I don't have any money to lead generate. Just get on the phones. You don't need money to knock on somebody's door. You don't need money, so those are the mindset that you've got to turn them around. You can't, stay in that. So finding leads will help you build your reputation. You have no lead gen. If you're not doing your lead gen, you're not going to have any leads. If you don't have any leads, you're not going to have any sales. If you don't have any sales, you're not going to have any closings, and that means not going to have any income. So it just really comes back to that. So plan your day around your lead gen. Don't plan your lead gen around your day. What you should do is put your personal time first, put your lead gen in where it's going to go every day, and then you fill it up with those appointments or the other events that you might end up doing a little bit later. So do we have any questions around just lead gen at the moment? I mean, I didn't go in depth with all of them, but I can certainly answer any questions if we have any about all 11 that I brought up.
I mean, you may cover this a little later on, but do you use any sources like RedX or Mojo or any of those?
So yes, we do, and I'm happy to cover it now. That's fine. We do use Mojo. So I use Mojo, which is the 3-line dialer. My husband uses Vulcan, which is a 1-line dialer. So once I started making calls with Bold, I was doing them all by hand. And I mean, I was hitting my numbers and everything was fine. And Javier would walk by my office all the time and yell at me and say, come and sit with me. You've got to get on the dialer. Guys, I didn't get on the dialer because I didn't know it and I was afraid of it. And somebody had told me that if you use the dialer, that if one person answers, the other person gets hung up on. And I was just horrified by that. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to hang up on somebody. Well, how it actually works is I've got a message that's on there that says, hi, this is Joan Kilton with Keller Williams Realty. I was just calling to, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. So if you answer the phone and then it gets to Greg, Greg hears that message, and the second you and I hang up and we finish our conversation, Mojo calls Greg back. And then I'm like, oh, can you hear me okay, Greg? So he didn't get hung up on rudely or whatever, you know, and I have 3 lines going. So I move fast. It's kind of just my personality, who I am. So I use the 1-line dialer, not for very long. I was like, oh my God, I'm standing here. I'd be standing there for 5 minutes waiting for the next one to pick up. And I was bored out of my mind. I'm like, okay, playing around on the computer. So I went to Mojo and the 3 lines, and sometimes even with the 3 lines, I'm like, oh, maybe I need 3 more. So Patrick has actually considered that as well, because, you know, Patrick gets on the phones and does a great job. But yes, so we, Cole, I think, so I think we use Cole for our phone numbers as well, Daniel. But with Vulcan, we get phone numbers from them. Todd did all of his research and talked to the agents that were in the office using the dialers prior to us getting on them. He went and talked to everybody, and everybody that he spoke with told him that Vulcan always had the best phone numbers. So that's another thing that we kind of like, even if Todd decided to go to a 3-line dialer, do we want to get rid of Vulcan because, you know, supposedly they have the best numbers? But so we do use both of them. And if you wanted to sit with me or sit with Todd, you're certainly welcome to do that. Todd's in the office every day, and he's on the phones, maybe sometimes different times, but he is in the office every day. I will be in and out probably a couple times a week, but I'm more than happy. You're welcome to sit and listen to me at any time. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions before I move on?
Do you
No?
try to-
Okay.
I do.
Oh, you do? Go ahead, Sir Greg. Well, Matt was shaking his head no, so.
Do you try to call FSBOs expireds?
Yes, so, and I was gonna talk about that in prospecting, which is coming up next, so yes. I've done a little bit of FSBOs. I haven't done a lot. I've done tons of expireds, tons of withdrawals. Todd at the moment is making them calls, but we call them very different. So literally him and I could call the same call list every day with expireds and withdrawals, and we would get different responses. So I've called expireds, Greg, that are a year, 2 years old even. Because, you know, there are maybe less again at the moment, but normally there's quite a few agents that are calling those expireds and withdrawals that happen every day. So, you know, sometimes depending on what time you are calling and reaching them, they may have already heard from 50 agents and the chance of getting that appointment is slim. On the other hand, I can tell you, it's got a lot to do, obviously, in your conversation with them and how you connect. Because I've had people say to me, oh my God, you're the 300th agent that called me today. And, you know, and there have been times that I have still been lucky enough to get them to see me, to get them to talk to me. And then there's been times, and Christina can tell you that after we've left a message. So obviously, if I get your answering machine, I have a message for expireds. I have a message for withdrawals. I have a message for circle prospecting. So I hit that button, and sometimes people will call me back, and Christina gets the call. And the reason Christina gets the call is I'm not supposed to be interrupted during my call time. So I'm not even supposed to take incoming calls. There has been times when she will come out by me and say, Mom, you really just have to talk to this person. I had one lady, and this was only, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. Todd had called, but it's my voice. So Todd's voice isn't the message. We just never changed it from mine. It seems to work. And the lady was screaming, like just crazy screaming. And I could see it on Christina's face. And so I get on the phone and I just let her keep screaming. And then I, apologized for bothering her, but I could tell there was more to it. In the end, like, she was in the middle of a divorce. I mean, there was so much going on in her life, and she was just insane with all the people calling her. It didn't turn, and I think she was even on the East Coast. That was the extra kicker. So unfortunately, I didn't have an opportunity to connect with her and actually get her info. But by the time she hung up, I had given her some ideas so that she didn't continue to get all those calls and help her out. So, you can't be afraid of those calls. And there's business to be had. I mean, expireds and withdrawns, they've raised their hand. They want to sell their home, but for some reason they take it off the market. And guess what? I can't tell you how many times. It's because our industry did not do a good enough job. And so they're back on they're expired, they're withdrawn, and excuse my language, but man, they're pissed off.
That was gonna be my other question, is that like with withdrawals especially, how can you put a number to how many may have just had a bad realtor, or if they were a difficult client? Because that's like my hesitation of dealing with withdrawals. It's like they probably wanted $500,000 for their house and it's only worth $300,000. So I can't get around that.
Well, I'm gonna say it's definitely it's a higher number. It really and truly is. But the bottom line is us digging to find out what it was. So when you answer the phone and yep, I took my home off the market. No, I don't want a realtor. And I say to you, well, if I were to bring you a buyer at a price that you're happy with, would you still consider selling your home? If your answer is yes, then it's my job to find out what was it that did or didn't happen. So then it's, okay, so Greg, what you're telling me is you still will consider moving for the right buyer and the right price. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you don't mind me asking, I see you did have it off the market. You took it off the market. You're obviously upset. Can you tell me what caused you to take the home off the market?
I put a lot of money into this house, renovating it, and it seems like nobody wants to pay what it's worth.
Okay, so let me ask you, when you sat down with your prior realtor, and did you guys go through the comparative market analysis? In other words, did you guys discuss the other homes in your area that are similar to yours and what the prices were that those homes were selling for?
Yeah, we talked about it, but the upgrades that I put in this house, they're better than what's in the other homes, and it took forever to do. So that's got to be worth something.
Okay, so you've put a lot of time, a lot of money into the home recently, and when you look at those numbers, so in your opinion, do you think that your home should sell for 5,000 more than those other homes, 10,000? What do you think?
I'd say at least 15,000.
15,000.
And
So
even though
is that, pardon?
even though my house is older, I feel like the upgrades you did were more extensive. It should be worth it.
Okay, so your home is older than the other homes that are in the surrounding area.
Yeah, just slightly.
Okay, just slightly. Okay. Well, so that being said, when you priced the home, the price that you chose to list it at, was it about 15,000 over that comparable price you were talking with your realtor about, or did you raise it even higher than that?
Well, the comparables were close. I only got maybe 5,000 more is what they were saying my house should be priced at, and I just don't agree with that.
Okay, so they thought it should be about 5,000 more and 15 was your number. So let me ask you, while your home was on the market, Greg, did you have many showings?
No, not really.
No, okay. So are you available to sit down and chat with me about that tomorrow or Wednesday?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So see, it's those, that's just what it is. There's going to be some people that are going to hang up on you. There's going to be some people that aren't going to be kind, but in a lot of cases, it's listening. It's always listening, but it's asking the right questions and letting them know that you care and that you hear them. And then the other piece is how you talk with them. I talk fast, I'm loud, so I have to slow down and I have to talk with you the way you're talking with me, because if I don't, I might accidentally run over you and I don't mean to. So I've learned that as well. So it's coming across and asking those questions. I mean, there's times that maybe I'll get through part of that conversation and they'll decide to hang up, right, Jerome?
Absolutely.
So I can tell you what Jerome and I do is we'll call him back,
Not scared.
right? And sometimes when I've been out there, I'll hear him or he'll hear me, and we just crack up. We look at each other and start laughing. You know, he'll hear me or I'll hear him going, well, you know what? I'm so sorry. We just got disconnected. I mean, and every once in a great while it happens, but sometimes they'll still talk to us. So Jerome is come to visit with us, everybody. Jerome is on the phones every day. How many hours a day, sir?
On average, anywhere between, I'd say 2.5 to 3 right now. Nothing crazy.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that, because you have been on the phone consistently, especially during this tough time, and you know, give us what your thoughts are on that. And then I did tell them that maybe you could just touch quickly on what your thoughts are. And I've got a couple PDFs that we can send to everybody that'll show them how to do the Facebook ads through Command, but I thought maybe you could give us a little info on that.
Drop into some of that. Okay. So here's what I'll say. I mean, I think that one of the biggest things, and Joni, I heard, got a little bit of some of the stuff that you had talked about earlier as far as putting it on your schedule. I think that that's where you need to start, right? Like, is a foundation of understanding that no matter what, the lead generation needs to happen, right? Like, everybody has an excuse, and I'm going to call it an excuse, when they start to get busy and they start to have clients who want to meet with them, that the lead generation that you did to get the business is what you ditched. That's the first thing you ditch when you have business, right? And we get so caught up in getting the excitement around having a warm body or somebody that we can meet with, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. We just have to understand that, again, going back to it, it is the lead generation that got us the business for the people that we're sitting in front of. So when we stop that, the business stops, and that's what creates that roller coaster. So in the other piece of it, from a prospecting scenario, there's tons of different ways. I mean, Joni talked about 11 different ways. I would say there's probably another 11 out there that we can name. I think the one big thing that we have to be privy to is that there are external circumstances that take away a lot of our lead generation power, right? Like, nobody in the beginning of the year, that for the most part thought that there was going to be a virus that was going to hit and shut down the entire city, right? And some of the fun things, or the things that we feel like we that mesh well with us, that we wanted to do, was taken away. Open houses, door knocking, like, nobody wanted to be within 6 or 10 or 15 feet from you because they thought that you had the virus and you were some weird sleazy person, right? Or you'd kill them. So you have to find different ways around that. And you know, that's one of the big things that I think Gary Keller kind of drove home. And I'm not going to make this a scenario around you have to get on the phones to be able to prospect, but understand that no matter what you do, whether it's door knocking, whether it's doing open houses, whether you decide to get on the phones or you pay for leads through Facebook ads, internet leads, or whatever the case is, you got to get on the phone at some point. So why don't you get used to being on the phone now, at least in my mind? So that way, when something does happen like this, I mean, hopefully this doesn't happen again, but they're already talking about second waves and all this crazy stuff. Your lead generation is going to be restricted, right? So what ways can we continue that lead generation? And we'll talk about a couple of them here through paid ads and pay-per-click and all these other avenues. At the end of the day, though, it has to be something that's an active form of lead generation. The social media stuff is great. Don't get me wrong. It's a way to be in front of people and a way to let them know that you're doing business. However, it's a passive type of lead generation because you don't know when they're looking or when they're reacting until they actually present themselves to you, versus doing active lead generation where if I'm on the phone, I'll know right then and there whether they're looking to buy or sell or not. Cool. I need my answer and we keep moving. Right? So I think that's if the lead generation is what you're looking to do, which, I mean, we're all in business to generate not only leads, but also generate business that gets us to a check. It's got to be consistent, and you got to find something that's active. And if some of our active lead generation by way of open houses and door knocking is restricted or stripped away from us because of external circumstances, we got to find a different way. I think the biggest fear, and correct me if I'm wrong for the people that are on the phone, the biggest fear that most of us have is, one, they're nasty, and two, we don't want to hear no.
Yeah, the rejection piece, right?
Yeah. And so here's the funny thing is that it's a different way that you look at it, right? I think that if you, like, at the end of the day, I could tell you no in a whole different set of ways, right? Like when you walk into a clothing store, for instance, right? The person at the door asks you, hey, do you need any help finding anything? You tell them no, typically, right? Do they go running in the back crying? No, they go on about their day, right? Like, and it's the same thing. For whatever reason, when we are attached to this phone, you can't see it because there it is. For some strange reason, we get so fearful, and it really is just that. It's a phone. We could hang up, they could hang up, and at the end of the day, they're going to tell you no. Now, they may tell you in the nastiest of ways. I can't begin to tell you how many different ways, how many different names I've been called under the sun, but it is truly just that, is that if there's it boils down to it's a no, and that's okay, because here's the thing, that no is getting me closer to a yes. And really a different way you can look at it is that no is getting me closer to a check. So let me get through as many of those no's as possible, so that way, whatever that check looks like, I can get to. And a lot of times it's got a nice comma and a few zeros behind it.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
What questions, if anything? I know I'm talking a lot and just kind of jumping in, rambling at this moment. Greg, I know you asked some questions around expires, and Joni had some great stuff. Any other questions around that? Any other questions around like prospecting as a whole?
Go ahead, Greg.
All right, Jerome. So how has your scripts changed with the whole COVID-19?
So it honestly, it hasn't changed too much. It depends on who I'm talking to. So one of the big things that I think I've pivoted in towards the beginning, kind of middle of this, is talking to my sphere of influence, my past clients a lot more. So that conversation has changed. And one thing that I picked up from Nate, so I got to give him a shout out, that he put me onto, was really just asking that question to them. Because here's the thing, we got to understand, even though we're talking to complete strangers, a lot of times they're going through the same thing that we are. Right? We're just, for the most part, keeping our head down and moving forward because we're essential and we have the ability to continue to work. Some people don't, right? So honestly, if you get that personality on the phone that's not aggressive, I'll typically ask that question, right? Like, hey, how are you doing within this time? And sometimes I'll jump right into the conversation of, are you looking to buy or sell? Great, whatever. And sometimes I'll just jump on, hey, how's everything going? I'm calling the neighbors right now, just really checking on the neighbors. We sold a house down the street, but I just wanted to see how everybody's doing. right? Like a lot of stuff is going on right now. People are, you know, because here's the thing. We don't have the answers, right? Like we're working through this together. And sometimes we got to be sensitive to that. Now, am I always sensitive? No, but you know, it depends on the type of conversation that I have. But I do ask that question a lot more often than normal because of it. And you'd be surprised what you get. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have some people who want to have that conversation, and you're going to have some people who don't, and that's okay. Either one is fine.
Yeah, because in all honesty, with learning scripts and different things, before, when we would call and say who we are, I didn't ask the expireds, how are you? I did until I learned the scripts and realized that the coaches really didn't want us to do that. They wanted us to talk about business. But now where we are today, Jerome, I think that's a really important thing we should be doing now.
Absolutely. I think that especially with honestly, with all of them, with, you know, for sale by owners, expires, withdrawals, Facebook ads, all of that, like some of the question becomes like, hey, you know, especially with the expires and for sale by owners, it is, you know, how are you doing in this time? A lot of expires and withdrawals are being taken down mainly because they don't want people in their house at this point, right? And they may not know, they may be with an agent who hasn't had a conversation with them around some virtual options and ways that we put into place, or you know, steps that we put into place to protect them, right? And they may just be taking it down just because that person doesn't have that answer, and whether good or bad, right or wrong, they've made that choice to take their home off the market, and that's where we step in to give them a different alternative, right? So some of my conversation with expires or withdrawals is just simply like, hey, you know what? I know most of the time they'll tell you right off the bat, I'm taking it down until this COVID stuff goes away. Well, guess what? It's probably not going to go away anytime soon, right? So my conversation is, look, I get it. I'm talking with a lot of my clients. I like to do an assumptive conversation. You know, a lot of my clients felt the same way you did. Let me ask you, with your last agent, did they talk about some things that we're doing here in our market to make sure that we protect our sellers to be able to get their home sold and still keep them safe from this virus? Well, no. Oh, man, that's crazy. Well, hey, you know what? I'd love to talk to you more about those options just to see if it's something that you'd be open to. What's a good time for you, weekends or weekdays? Like, I don't want to have that conversation over the phone, because now I feel like I'm trying to sell them over the phone. I want to go ahead and set up an appointment, number one, because I don't know if I'm talking to all of the decision makers, right? And number two, my job right now is to set as many appointments as possible and keep moving, right? And if I try to sell them over the phone right then and there, well, guess what? I'm putting myself in the middle of a conversation that I'm not prepared for properly. So that's where I think a lot of us try to sell over the phone, and our goal is to set the appointment first, so that way you can be prepared for the actual conversation.
And so, being that there's a great chance that one of the reasons you're getting to set that appointment is because the other agent possibly didn't offer the Zooms, that's probably your next point, right? That you'd like to set it up that way so that you can show them how easy it is to not have people come through their home.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's going to be the biggest factor, because I mean, some people, they're deathly afraid of this virus, which, I mean, there are people dying, so it's not like it's not real, right? And if we don't offer that solution to them, like we got to understand, we are the solution that they're looking, or we're the person that they're looking for the solution. And if we don't figure out a way to find that solution for them, we're missing the boat. We're not going to say that we failed. We're just missing the boat, because there are some people out there that don't really care about the virus, that are like, let them in. I don't, it doesn't bother me. There are some people that buyers that want to go out. I've taken out many of buyers that want to just, they're like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm cool. If I catch it, I'll take some, whatever. I'll drink Listerine, like, never mind. But at the end of the day, we have to be sensitive to other people's concerns. We can't let our own thought process and opinion dictate someone else's, right? So having that conversation, I think it all boils down to communication of, hey, this is a real thing. How do you feel about it, right? If we're talking to our clients in the same way, if we're talking to that prospect, how are you feeling about everything going on right now? If you had the opportunity to still sell your property, move to the property that you want to buy, and still be safe, is that something you would still entertain? Right? Because I talked to one guy, he just literally did not, in his mind, in his heart of hearts, in his mind, it just did not feel like it was possible to sell your property at this point in time because of the virus. And I said, you look, I completely get it. And let's at least talk about some options that are out there for you, right? Before you make that decision completely. Now, if you want to stay with plan A, which is to wait until this thing is over sometime next year or never, that's a choice of yours, right? But at the end of the day, the goal is to at least offer the solution, right? Like I know we're harping on the expires, but that is a true conversation that you're going to have with a lot of them. And I think you're going to have that with any of them, with any prospects across the board, because it is a concern right now. Although we're still opening up, like people are still not leaving their house. Like it is a real thing. Like they are locked in, and they were probably the first ones that grabbed a ton of toilet paper and all the meat in the grocery stores because they knew they weren't going anywhere anytime soon. And you know what? That's fine. Those are the ones that I put to the back burner. I check in with periodically. A lot of those people I have conversations with around like, hey, how are you doing on supplies? Because I mean, if I know that they're not planning on leaving the house, now our conversation of the follow-up becomes different, because now it's from a contribution standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the piece, right? Whether it's the expired, the withdrawn, or whoever it is, our SOIs and our past clients, we still have to come from contribution. It's so important for them to know that we do have their best interests at heart, regardless of what that looks like. You know, the other day on Patrick's call, when he was doing scripts, he was talking about that one of his clients, you know, asked it like, should I be selling this house, or should I be keeping it as an investment and just buying this other house? So, you know, it's doing the right thing and making sure that you're coming from contribution and you're bringing your clients the value that they're looking for. And to me, Jerome, that's one of the ways that we are able to lock up the amount of expireds and withdrawns and things like that, because we do bring them value and they see that we do care.
Yeah, I mean, even I would say I would agree with that, and even like taking it a step further from and beyond expires and for sale by owners, I think that coming up with a solution for anyone who's looking to do something in real estate one way or the other is our big thing. A lot of times, like we kind of, especially in the beginning, not even in the beginning, because I know some seasoned agents that do this, but we have to take our own personal agenda out of it, as far as which is what, cashing a check, right? Like we have to take that portion out of it, in which, you know, we like to call commission breath, and really put ourselves like we are, like if we could take the word real estate agent out and more so a real estate consultant, that would be a better perspective, because we are truly, that's what we do. We're consulting with our client to find out what's the best move for them. Sometimes buying and selling right now just isn't it, right? Sometimes, in like Joni said, sometimes in putting your house or making your house in the investment property for the next year or so, and buying the next, if you can, cool. Or maybe just, you know what, selling your house and renting for a year. That might be it too. It's different, and we just have to get out of the mind of a one track and offer a plethora of options, right? Like I think that's what Gary Keller brought in with the whole Keller offer situation, because it gives us another tool in our tool belt for those for sale by owners who say that they just want a buyer, right? Bring me a buyer. Okay, cool. I can bring you a Keller's offer in the next 24 to 48 hours, and let's see what you want to do with that. It gives us an ability to get our foot in the door from them thinking, well, from a for sale by owner standpoint, I don't want to pay you because you guys do nothing. A lot of agents don't, right? Like a lot of agents just put the home on the market. And this is a way that we're coming up with different ways to get our foot in the door. Number one, to be able to provide different options for the seller or buyer, because there's different options for them too, to be able to make the most sound decision for themselves, not us.
Well, and I think it's a great point, because I had not had that in my notes. So I'm really glad you brought that up, that you know, with making these calls, Greg, and somebody saying to you, I'll pay you if you bring me a buyer, but I'm not listing, I'm not anything. And just like Jerome said, you know, I haven't been making those calls in a while. So the idea that we can turn around and say, guess what? I do have an opportunity to bring you a cash offer tomorrow. I can be there at noon. How does that work for you? That's huge, because once you get through the door, let's face it, whether or not they take that offer, then you have the opportunity to figure out and make a decision whether or not you're going to change that script and put on a different hat.
Absolutely.
So what can you tell us about that is important for everybody to know that's hearing this about the Facebook command and how Facebook works with that? Because that is something that I have not worked with as of yet.
So, okay. So the one big thing that I like that Keller Williams Command did and how they set this whole situation up with joining with Facebook is they took Facebook's interactive algorithm and basically just joined them two together. So with Facebook eventually, or at some point in time, I'm not really sure when, but what they ended up doing is they understood that for the most part, the people that are running ads on their Facebook system don't really know what they're doing, right? So they offered an algorithm platform that does a lot of the trolling, if you will, for you to kind of adjust your ad to know when to inject more money to boost and when not to. So you can maximize your dollar for the amount that you're spending to get more leads in, right? And so they took basically that whole system and basically just handed it over to Command. So anything that you put in through Command, as far as from a dollar perspective, Facebook and Command together will go off and they will do all of the adjusting of your ad for you. So they know the times to put it, to make it a little bit more prominent. They know the times to pull it back based on your audience that you're looking to attract the leads from. So for the most part, what you'll get is a very, I mean, this is what it all boils down to. You get a very low cost for the amount of leads. Like I think the last one that I did was $100 for, I think it was like 15 days. I got 66 leads, 65, 66 leads. It was basically boiled down to like a little over $1 a lead, right? And so, and you know, for the ones that have done pay-per-click before, we know, like, we're like, oh my God, where some don't, right? Like if you've never done pay-per-click or never done like a Facebook ad, just the pay-per-click, what I mean by is like boosting or paying for like realtor.com leads, Zillow leads, all those, you're looking at anywhere between $13 to $21 a lead. Right. So when we look at 13 to 21 all the way down to $1.30, right, you're talking about a heck of a lot more benefit, more bang for your buck. And I mean, if you're not already on this Facebook page, it is Command Your Conversion. Nick Baldwin, who's a Keller Williams agent, and I can't remember what city he's in, but he's now, I think he's actually, his team is doing everything, and he's now more so on the back end of things. But that page dives into a lot of different strategies that they're using, a lot of different scripts that they're using as well. So it's a great one to have or to join. And I mean, on average, I would say that everybody in there, I mean, unless you're getting real crazy with the ads, they're spending anywhere between $50 to $75 a month on leads, and they're getting anywhere between, I mean, they're getting a ton of them just off of that. So I mean, the ability to get the most bang for your buck from the Facebook ad because of the way they're doing their algorithm is I mean, it's second to none.
That's because it's connected with Command, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the cool thing that I like is it drives it right into your Command system, and Kelly will alert you as soon as it's in there that you got a new lead, so that way you can go and attack it.
Awesome. So Dawn had put in the chat and said, so for your $100 and of those 66 leads, how many have become appointments and or sales / listings?
Great question, Don. So the numbers are a little skewed only because I was doing that during COVID. So guess what? Everybody's home and everybody's on their social media. Everybody's bored
Now
and
you've got
looking
their
online.
info, which is awesome.
Right. So the good thing, I mean, here's what I'll say as well. Is just like any other pay-per-click, you're going to get some people that put in incorrect information because they want to stay hidden, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, you're going to get a good amount of people. So I would say of that 66, and numbers are a little, because I don't have them in front of me, I would say somewhere around about 40% contact ratio, which is for pay-per-click is good. Because you can expect anywhere between 10 to 15%, maybe 20%, depending on how many different times you call through. Of that 40%, so what is that, like, I don't know, 20 something. Of that 40%, I got, I added, I'd say probably about 10 people to my database for long-term follow-up. And by long-term, I mean just a year or less out.
Okay.
And then set 3 appointments. I got one person that is signing their contract here in the next week, but that was just because of long follow-up that I had to do after the fact. And that's because of they had to get their ducks in a row for a couple of different things. But I mean, hey, it's going to turn there. And the ad that I was running was for a $600,000 listing. And so they're looking around about 450 to 500. So $100 for 15,000. I ain't mad at that.
Yeah, can't beat that. And that's just now for the immediate, right? I mean, you've got the
Right.
other people in your database that, again, you know, the follow-up, boys and girls, super important. Kathy's class on Friday. I mean, that's the piece.
Right.
$100 isn't a ton of money, but the bottom line is if Jerome wasn't going to do the follow-up and make those calls and get it in his database, he might as well have just lit the money on fire because,
Absolutely.
you know, that's just the important piece. Greg, you had a question?
Yeah. So Jerome, when you ran your ad, did you use a standalone landing page or did you use Facebook's lead generation page? You have those 2 options when you run the ad.
Right. So I did 2 so the first time around that I started doing it, I did 2 different ones because I wanted to see what the difference was. I wish I would have flipped the 2 because I did the Facebook page, like the Facebook register or whatever, on a smaller listing, which got me a ton of leads, which was awesome. And I did the other way from the landing page on my big listing. I got absolutely nothing. I got a lot of looks at the property, but the click through to the actual page didn't actually happen. And I didn't go through any of it myself. What my guess is, as soon as you click on the ad, it automatically, the one thing that I like about the Facebook profile or the Facebook lead ad form is that it automatically takes what you've already registered your account to be, right? So the email address that you've registered and the cell phone number that you've registered through Facebook, it pre-populates that for you. So all you have to do is click go. And a lot of people don't pay attention to that. The ones who truly want to be hidden will change the number or change their email address or something like that. But I saw so the first time I did the $600,000 listing through the register after you get to the landing page part, got 0 leads whatsoever. The second time is when I got that 66.
Yeah.
Right. So great lesson learned. Always use a Facebook ad because it pre-populates it for them. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to, because that's what creates a small hesitation. And crap, I got to give my information. And what we know for the most part is that, at least for me anyway, so I like to feel like I'm hidden on some level. The email that I use for Facebook and Instagram is not an email that I use anywhere else, right? It is just for the social media. So if there are people out there like that, they don't mind just clicking through, and that's fine, which I like, because if they're doing that, any other emails that I send out to them, they're going to get the update for it. And that's the only thing that they're getting, because it's a shell email only for their social media. So if I'm the only one sending them out properties or communicating through email that way, it's out. It's going to be the only thing that's registered. There's no way for it to get buried, which I like.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions about the Facebook ads?
I saw
Okay, cool.
Facebook ads, follow up. Absolutely. And
Yes,
here's
Miss
the thing.
Kathy. Kathy's got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Trying to unmute myself. So I haven't tried doing a Facebook ad on there. So what you were saying is not to use the KW, like the landing page from your website, but use the Facebook landing page?
No, so the any landing page that you send them to is whatever you create. There's a registration form that they need to fill out, right? So if you're going through and you're clicking on stuff, and they'll say sign up or sign in to view the property or view more pictures. There's two different ways that it tells you that you can do it. One is through Facebook's lead form, and then the other one is like if your landing page has its own type of registration. Right. So what you don't want to do is have it go to your own landing page's registration, because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to fill that out. And if it forces you to, at that point, sign in to be able to view the property, they're going to feel like it's a bait and switch and they're going to back out. So if you use the Facebook one, it already automatically pre-populates their information. So they just click go and it goes right to whatever landing page you drive them to. So what we're doing is we have the KW commit, or our Keller Williams website, we have that link for that particular property as the what they call the click-through link. So once they register and do everything else that they need to do, it takes them to that actual landing page, right? So I actually changed it from doing just the landing page to going in, finding the property through my KW site, and then sending them that link, because it keeps them on the site versus the landing page is just that property and that's it. At least that's how I had it set up anyway. But so I always use the Facebook because it registers them so much easier. And from what I've found is that I get more leads that way than having them try to register on the landing page.
Thank you.
That makes sense. Well, thank you for all of that for sure. So I just am really at this point, we've talked about quite a bit and talked about how important your lead generation is, doing it 3 hours a day. Hit on the expireds, the withdrawns, and call in your SOI and your past clients, guys. That was actually, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, that was a little bit tough for me. It was much, much easier for me to call strangers. I didn't want to ask you too, Jerome. I didn't want to ask my friends and family and stuff for business, like I had said a little bit earlier. I'm over that now. One of the things, you know, some of you may have been with their office for a while, maybe not. One of the things that really helped me with that was the events we throw in our office. Reaching out to my clients to invite them to our Halloween party in October, to our Death by Chocolate event that we have every February. I have clients now for doing this for so many years. They know that I'm going to be calling them about Death by Chocolate. Halloween is just starting because we're on the 3rd year, and we're going to have to see, obviously, with COVID and stuff, if we're able to do that stuff. But one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, if, depending on where things go, if open housers are knocked out for a while, if events are knocked out, like what else could we do? And so some of the things that I was thinking about was putting some possible seminars together, reaching out to your database, finding out if any of your clients maybe are considering doing investments. So putting together an investment seminar Zoom. Well, we got to get Matt. He doesn't realize thank you, sir. So that's one thing that I was thinking about. Also, possibly, you know, some people maybe like the idea of running games and doing different things like that, but reaching out to your clients and putting together different seminars, seeing what is it that maybe they need right now. And there might be, you know, a dozen clients that might be considering buying investments, and it would be great to get them on a Zoom and be able to touch them that way. Talk to people about what's going on with interest rates and refinancing. There's definitely a lot of ways that you can still reach out to people and get involved. Maybe you might be interested in working with a nonprofit and seeing if you can get on their board. Robin in our office is really big with her Rotary group. I know Paul and Leah are both in LaTip groups. So there is certainly a lot of options for still getting involved with people if the events don't come back. And when it comes down to it, getting on those phones is really the best way to do it. You know, we've just got to make sure that we're out there reaching out to people, and you know, we've got to come from contribution. I mean, that's really and truly what it is. Now, I've talked to some people, obviously Jerome's with me, but I have talked to people that they don't want to make the expired, the withdrawns. You have to look at it. So as an example, I was listening to Bold Pivot, and Cody Gibson made a really good point. He said, you know, if you're not reaching out, whether it's your SOI or it's to strangers, and whatever that looks like for you, you could be withholding a really good opportunity from them and not even realize it. So the example that Cody gave is, if you were standing in line at the grocery store, let's face it, COVID or not, somebody drops their wallet or $100 bill, you're the good person, you're going to bend down, you're going to let them know about it. It's the same thing. If you've got a great deal right now that, and you do your research, man, that's a really good deal. That's the lowest price per square foot in the area. I know I've got at least a half a dozen investors. You should be calling them, because what happens when you call them to just check on them? Oh, well, I just, you know, fell across this investment, and you had the opportunity to help them. And it's quite possible that your deal was better than what they ended up with. You know, the things that we don't realize, you know, if you're a good agent, you know, if you give great customer service. You also know that unfortunately there's agents out there that are not. So, I mean, we talk about, if we're not in front of them, are we doing a huge disservice, because now they may trip over a weak agent,
Yes.
right? So, you know, it lead generating, prospecting, cold calling, it's all a super important part of what we do. And if we don't have that machine and that funnel going day in and day out, guys, we're going to be in trouble. I mean, with everything going on, you know, Debbie put our trending together, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have watched those panels and been involved in a lot of the different office events. I know that I have, I'm sure Jerome has, and even some of you guys, you know, I know Jason Shelkey talking to some of the other, even, you know, agents that he's done referrals with, that they didn't do a lot of the stuff that we've had in our office. So the opportunities that we have, they're here. But if we're not doing our lead generating and we're not out there asking for help, all of us in the office are willing to help in any way that we can. So don't be shy. And, you know, believe me, it's been a big deal for me just to get on scripts and role play on Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, because I didn't grow up like that. I realized a few years ago, like, oh my God, I have my own scripts. Whether they're good or not is another story, but I have my own. And, you know, I've learned that we're going to stumble, we're going to fall, but you know what? You're gonna, it's fear or it's faith. So sometimes you are gonna have a failure. It's just how long are you gonna stay down? But lead generating, if we're not doing it, you're gonna end up, you know, going, okay, I've got to go and get a real job. Boys and girls, this is a real job, and it's the best business we can be in, period. We have an opportunity every single day to get up and help somebody. How many people do you want to help every day?
Leah,
Are
you're
you
live.
tracking your numbers? I'm sorry?
I was saying, Leah, you're not on mute.
Oh, I'm not? I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So, you know, the other piece that goes with that, we talked about Kathy's class on Friday with follow-up, but the other piece, guys, is tracking your numbers. So, you know, if you have to track, how many calls are you making? How many people are you reaching? And how many are those turning into appointments? How many of those are turning into closings? Because if you're on the phones every day, day in and day out, and you're tracking your numbers and you're getting discouraged because you're not making appointments, or you're not ending up with some new listings, some new buyers, that's got to tell you something. And the only way you're going to figure that out is to track it. Maybe your scripts need to be a little bit stronger. Maybe it's your objection handling that you need to practice a little bit. But that's tracking your numbers is how you're gonna know where you need to be. And it also helps you figure out what your goals should be. You know, everybody, some people does it, but they do it by, oh, I need to make this much a month, or I need to make this much a year. Other people just want to close so many deals every month. Everybody does it different, but what it boils down to is, are you doing your scripts and role play? Are you getting on the phone and are you tracking your numbers? Are you filling up that database? All of those pieces are just really, really important. And I mean,
I was gonna say, can I dive in? Sorry,
Yeah.
can I dive into that a little bit more? Because
absolutely. I was just gonna say, like, it's, you know, when you look at the numbers and you go, uh-oh, yeah, I realize there's something that I'm weak in. So I think that's what you were gonna jump in on.
yeah, I mean, so here's what I think too is like we talk about the numbers a lot, right? Like, hey, you must track your numbers, you must track your numbers, and I don't think we really drive in the benefit of that, right? Because let's just be real, tracking numbers is boring. It is the most draining
Unless you
situation
like
ever.
numbers.
Right? Unless you like numbers. And I think even if you like numbers, it's still boring, right? Because it's analytical work. But I think that where the benefit lies is that what you'll start to develop over time is a story about your business, right? And the way I equate it, because here's the thing, we always, typically the way we run our businesses as small business, new business owners, is we look at what's in the bank account. If the bank account is fat and happy, or what we perceive to be fat and happy, then we know we're doing something good. And if it's not, then we know we need to get to work, right? And that's a very lag measure type of activity, because that's results driven. And there's so many different factors that can change that result versus if we're tracking our numbers up front, right? Doing that tedious work of knowing how many people we talk to, how many hours we're doing our prospecting, phone or not. How many, like Joan said, how many appointments are we setting, going on, contracts, all that good stuff. What that starts to develop is that's what that story is your conversion rates, right? And so when we look at the conversion rates, that gives us a better ability, a better understanding of what our skill set is. So in other words, if I know that it takes me 10 people to talk to get one contract, well, then I know I have a 10% conversion rate. And if I don't like that, then I need to get better at my skill set, right? Or just talk to more people, right? And so what that starts to create is that conversation what Gary Keller talked about, is that predictability, that boring part of our business, which creates that predictability in our business, so that way we can rid ourselves of the real estate roller coaster that we all go through, because we want the quote unquote freedom in our business, without the structure, right? Like, this is, while it's creating the structure, it'll give us the freedom that we're looking for, because now we know from an analytical standpoint how many people we need to talk to get the amount of money that we want, right? And again, if we don't like that number, or if we don't like the amount of people that we have to talk to, then we get to either get better at our skill set or decrease the amount of money we want to make. And I don't think anybody wants to decrease the amount of money they want to make.
Nope.
Right. So that's like, again, I mean, we hear it all the time, track your numbers, but that's really what it's about and why we need to do it, because it will give us what we need in our business.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
And that's awesome. I'm not a numbers person either, but if you're not getting the appointments, that script practice that Melissa does at 9:30, Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Zoom, it has been invaluable. I mean, I've been in real estate a while. Joni's been in way longer than me, and we're both on there most mornings. And I am learning a lot. I've never been a script person. I just talk, and I wing it, but that's really helped me. And so I would highly suggest that if you can at all get on that call, you don't have to be on the spot to actually practice the scripts if you don't want to, but just by listening. And we learn a lot from Melissa herself. We learn a lot from each other, Joni. So I highly recommend that script on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9:30. It's only half an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I mean, what Jerome said is true. And the piece is, by tracking your numbers and paying attention to them, you do figure out which piece it is that maybe you're weak in, because you realize what appointments you're getting and why you're getting them. If the only appointments you're getting are the sphere of influence and past clients, and you're making all kind of calls to withdrawals and expireds, then obviously it's learning your scripts. You're just, you're not hitting the nail on the head. There's a big difference in those conversations as far as that goes. So, I just think that all of that is really important, and just staying in front of people. If you're not going to get on the phone, find another way to get in front of people. And like Jerome said, and because I was going to mention that, I agree with them wholeheartedly. If with what's happening today, if you haven't by now, this many months being home, figured out how are you getting belly to belly with people by getting on the phone, by being in Zoom, you're probably got your head in the sand, and you might need to come and talk with some of us. We're here to help, because, I stayed home for the first 2 weeks and said, I need a break. I'm here. I took care of every client we were working on. I didn't make calls. I needed a break, but I knew that that break couldn't go any longer if I wanted my business and my income to continue coming in. So, don't feel like we're going to judge or do anything. We're here to help. And if you can figure out that lead generation piece that you really enjoy and just master it, your business is going to go up. You won't have these. Any other questions? It's just about time for us to end this. Anybody else have some parting words, ahas, questions for me or Jerome?
I saw a question in here earlier. If nobody has one right away, I saw you had asked a question. I think it was around the Facebook leads as well. Are they quality leads in your experience? Here's what I'll say is that all leads are, to me, the same. Because you have 3 different sets, right? You have some people that are ready right this second, you have some people that are ready in the future, and you have some people that aren't at all. And it's your job to figure out where they stand. And again, for Kathy's class, and I'm not going to jump into that too much, it is all about the follow-up depending on where they are, right? And so there's leads everywhere. The quality or not is your determination around them. I think the biggest deterrent for people to say that, these are crap leads or whoever I'm calling is bad is the story you're getting sold on, right? Because especially when we talk about scripts, right? Like the importance of scripts, understand that the question that you're asking them of if they're buying or selling, depending on the type of lead that you're calling, right? So if we're talking about Facebook ads or pay-per-click, you're going to be talking to a lot of people that I equate this analogy to, and I think I already said it, but like you're going into a clothing store. That lead walking in is the person you're calling. You're asking them if they're looking to buy or sell right now. And they're going to tell you typically, no, I'm just looking, right? It's your job to get sold on that story or not, because their script, that if you will, is no, I'm just looking, right? So you think about yourself the next time you walk into a convenience store or a clothing store and they say, hey, do you need any help? And you say, no, I'm just browsing around. Cool. Where we go wrong is we're expecting the person to walk through the door and say, yes, I need help right this second. That's the one that we're looking for, what we like to call the low-hanging fruit, right? And we're ignoring everybody else in the background that said that they're just looking and they're just browsing. Because again, you think about that clothing store analogy, right? Like if you're walking through the clothing store and you find your perfect blouse that you want to buy, you don't go back up to the front of the store to have that person ring you up. You find the closest person next to you to ring you up, right? And this is the same way. When they're ready, whoever calls them at that right time, they're going to do business with, right? So it's not the fact of the crap lead or in your mind is a bad lead. What it is you didn't do the work long enough for you to warrant their decision to hire you as the agent, right? So that's why we have to organize the leads in the way that we do when we're prospecting. Everyone for me, the way it works is if they're 0 to 90 days out, they're a hot lead, they get a follow-up every single week, right? If they're 3-ish to 12 months out, they're considered, in my mind, a nurture, and they're going to get a follow-up every 2 weeks. And if they're 12 months or more out, then I'm going to call them once a month. But the cool thing is that no matter what, they're going to hear from me on some level, and they're going to get some type of communication from me, whether it's a market report, if they're looking to sell, or properties of something that they're interested in buying. that's coming out every month. So I would say absolutely, to me, there's no such thing as a bad lead. It's just what are we doing to make sure that whatever lead in understanding their time frame, what are we doing in the middle of that to stay in touch?
And I think that you mentioned this earlier. She came back to and asked the possible percentage or numbers as far as that the email and or phone numbers were correct. I know you
Okay.
mentioned.
Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I just saw that too. So I mean, I would say that I probably, I mean, I haven't done the percentages on it. I'd probably say about 10% of it is like bad information.
That's certainly not, that's a low number.
Right. For the most part, it is, and this is why we can't get sold on the story, right? Because and it's just about, for me, my mindset is once you're in, unless you have completely bad information, like I can't call you and I can't email you, then that's the only way you're leaving my database, because I can't begin to tell you how many people I've talked to that said that they've already bought or sold, that they already had an agent, that it was the wrong number, that they accidentally clicked on whatever story that they tell you, and then 6 months, 8 months, a year later, they're like, yeah, I'm actually looking to buy, let's meet. And it's the same person, right? So that's why I say you can't get sold on their story. Just know that if they're entering your database, it's like a black spider, a black widow web. Like you're not getting out unless you're dead. And by dead, I mean, you don't have I have no way to contact you. That's the only way I consider a dead lead, to leave my database. If I got an email and no phone, guess what? I'm gonna email you till you tell me to go to hell, excuse my language, or you give me the right information and we can continue on with helping you buy or sell.
And that's when Gary talks about how important it is to build a moat around your database and the people that are in your database. Because one of the other important pieces we didn't get to talk too much about, but our KW app is pretty outstanding. And one of the pieces with it is that if they're in my database and I've sent them my app, and then Jerome trips on them and he talks with them and tries to send them the app, their phone will only take one. So it's mine. So you've got to build that moat around your database. And, you know, I mean, there have been times where, you know, we've said maybe we should take somebody out or whatever, but Jerome's right. I mean, unless they, you know, are threatening you in some way, shape, or form, you got to leave them in. And you mentioned wrong numbers. I don't know about you, but when somebody tells me it's a wrong number, I still talk with them. I let them know, you know, well, Christina, let me tell you, the reason that I was calling to reach out to April today was because I do have a home for sale in the area, or I'm calling about buyers, whatever I'm doing. And the bottom line is I ask them, are you by any chance considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate in the near future? And I've had conversations. I've already got their number, right? So now I've got to get their name, because they weren't who I thought they were because the number changed, and gotten their email. And I still talk to them and do the best I can to convert them. And I don't take them out of my database. I change the name. I mean, if they don't give me their name right then and there, I take them out and change it and put wrong number, but I still leave it in the database to call. I don't know if anybody does that or not, but
yeah, you do not leave. You're either, because it's one of two things. You're either going to do business directly with me or refer me business.
kind of like Hotel California, right?
Right.
All right, guys, class is about up unless we have anybody else with any other questions, comments.
No, I just hope to see everybody on Friday for the follow-up class.
Wonderful. Jerome, thank you so much, my dear, for showing up. I greatly appreciate you and all of your help. Thanks, guys, for
Thank you
being
for
here
having me.
today. I hope
Great
that you
job.
all got something out of this and feel that it was a good worth your time. And then Ms. Kathy will take over on Friday. Thanks for being here, guys. We really appreciate you.
Woo, thanks so
All right,
much.
guys.
Great. Thank
Thanks,
you very much.
Thank
Joni.
you.
Enjoy
Bye.
your, what is it, Wednesday? Yeah. See you later.
Yes.